She's a homemaker, don't you know? She'll teach you how to cook and sew, and how to wield a hammer. It's the June the Homemaker Show. Hello, and welcome to the June the Homemaker Show. Today on June the Homemaker, we are going to learn how to darn socks, which is something that is really cool. Darning socks is a way to fix holes in socks by actually knitting over the holes of the socks so that you can use them like you would a normal sock. It came from a time when everybody used to knit their socks, right? And then every once in a while the knitting would break down. And then you had to have a way to sort of weave your socks back together because of course there wasn't a store to go and buy new socks. It works today with embroidery thread. You don't have to use yarn. So I'm going to use yellow and orange embroidery thread so that you can see well, but if you match your thread to the socks that you're doing, then really not a whole lot of people will be able to tell. I actually have an example of what I'm talking about here. This is one that I did already. You can see that what I've basically done here is created a little crisscross pattern. The basic principle behind this is the same principle as those little weavy hot pot holders that you used to make when you were a little kid. You put a whole bunch of strands one way, and then you weave another strand in between them, and it creates this little cover over the hole. So the advantage to sock darning, as opposed to just buying new socks, especially for people who always wear through their socks in the same places, is that if you darn over a hole instead of buying another sock, this little thing that you do here with embroidery thread is actually stronger than a brand new sock. So you buy 6 pairs of socks for $7, you get holes in all the heels, you fix all of them, and then instead of buying a bunch more $7 packages of socks, you just have these same socks that last a lot longer. And obviously you don't have to do them in red and yellow. I am just doing that because those are happy colors and the colors that I have, and it's easier for you to see that way. Apparently this is not a problem that is a small problem or a problem that not a lot of people have. When I asked my family for socks to darn so that I could have example socks, they gave me all of these socks. So save money on socks. Sock darn instead. The first thing that you need when sock darning is embroidery thread. Not a long piece of embroidery thread, but a short piece. And also, if you can, prevent it from getting tangled because it's a pain in the butt once it gets tangled. You want a fairly long piece of embroidery thread. Like, I usually just do 2 arms length because that is a reasonable amount of thread. And you're also going to need a needle that is a yarn needle or a darning needle so that the little head is large enough for the embroidery thread to fit through, because embroidery thread is not small. Only half the embroidery thread went through. Sometimes putting the thread through the needle is actually the hardest part of sock darning. There we go. Okay, here's the needle end with just a little lead on it that you don't want to lose, but it's generally okay if you have just a little one. You don't need to double over the thread or anything. Just grab the end of the thread, wrap it around your finger, do a little one of these so it gets all tangled up, and then pull to the end, and you have a knot. For the first threads that you put through, you're going to want your sock to be inside out. So the hole we're going to deal with is this little hole right here. As you can see, it is big enough for me to poke my little finger through, so it's big enough for a toe to go through and is ripping the sock apart. So the first thing we're going to do is put a whole bunch of strands of thread going in the same direction across the hole. Now we're going to put it back through, going the other way, as close to the original thread as possible. So, and then we do this a bunch of times. We're going to do this until the hole is covered with threads going in the same direction. That's pretty good, actually. Now we're just going to go through the fabric in an opportune place, pull down until there's this little tiny loop here. Run embroidery thread through the loop thrice, and then pull it. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of this to make it a knot, but now it's definitely a knot. You can cut this. And now we are going to turn the sock right side out. Well, Here is the sock right side out. You can see I did another little bit of a hole and it was a little bit wonky, but that's okay. Just pay attention to this one. We have all our little strands running in a parallel way. I have this yellow thread that I'm going to run in the opposite direction. We're going to run that up through the sock. You want this to come up through the sock so that we can run the yellow thread perpendicular to the way the red threads are threaded. Ta-da! There it is. Well, this is just an under-over pattern. Now it's important not to pull your threads too tight because you want this to be the same size as the hole was. Okay, now I'm going to go through the sock fabric again. I'm going to do an over and under and over, an under and an over, and then pull that across. Okay, so now you can see we've created this little embroidery thread grid over the hole, so now my finger can't come through, and it's actually really strong. It stays together and it's like enmeshed. It's like a part of the fabric. Only wonky colors, but you don't have to use wonky colors. That's just the way I'm doing. Now to finish, take your needle, poke it through, all the way through near where your hole is, grab onto the needle with your hand that's inside the sock, and pull the sock inside out. Now we have the inside out part of the sock. Pull the rest of the thread through so that it is straight and beautiful. Take this little part and do the tie-off trick that we did before with the red thread. Go through the loop once, twice, 3 times. Push it down a little bit. Just cut it off. And that's it. That's the whole process. You can see from the outside, this is how it looks. It's just a little mesh, and if you can imagine if this were gray and gray and gray, then you almost wouldn't even be able to tell it was there, and in any event, whoever looks at the bottom of your socks, and it'll make your socks last a long time. That's basic sock darning, folks, and check out links to the pages where I learned how to darn socks. They don't show you how to do with embroidery thread, but they do give you the basic idea. That is how you do sock darning. It is pretty adorable. Also, if you tell people that you know how to darn socks, they'll be like, what? You know how to darn socks? How the heck did that happen? And then they will be amazed and will pretty much love you forever. And who doesn't want to be loved forever? Nobody. Nobody doesn't want to be not loved never. This is June the Homemaker, and I have a bunch more socks to darn, as you saw at the beginning. Signing off.